In today's episode, I talked to Steph Lianos. Steph is a kinesiologist based out of Sydney, and I saw her towards the end of last year when I went to see her about, I can't even remember, but it was not related to a podcast. But it was in these sessions with her where the idea, and I guess the courage to do this, actually came up. She's awesome. She is a joy seeker. She's all about abundance. She just loves life and living like a full and authentic life to her. So it was really cool to talk to her. We talked a lot about like healing and joy and abundance and being multifaceted beings. We use a lot of words like universe and energy and frequency and healing. And to me, those words very much resonate and make sense, but for some people they may not. So I kind of implore you to think about what other words or phrases or like even industries that have very similar concepts, which of those resonate for you, and sort of run with that. It could be quantum physics, it could be the quantum field, it could even be something like the placebo effect. Anyway, I will link all her info in the show notes, and I hope you enjoy this episode. So I'd kind of love to hear your story and how working in this space kind of unfolded.
Yes. Okay. So I have a pretty wild story, and I'm going to condense it because otherwise it'll go for years. But I really believe that my journey to where I am now, so working with, and I like to call it energy alchemy. So that's like the process of transmuting low vibrational energy that lives in the body to high vibrational energy to a higher frequency, so we can continue aligning with the things that we desire, with the energy of the things that we desire. So I started off in corporate in the music industry. I worked as a Red Bull girl for like 3 years, which I will say was the funnest time in my whole life. So I've loved that. I love that period so much. And then through there, I worked my way up through working in production there. And then I always had this like little niggle that it wasn't the right thing for me. And I was having, really fun experiences. Like they were flying me business class to go to meetings, like all of this wild stuff. And I was like 23, but deep down, there was something saying to me, like, this is pointless. Like there is no depth to what you're doing. Like it's fun, but are you really helping anyone? And so one day I just woke up and I just quit. And my parents and everyone was like, what are you doing? Like, you have this dream job. And it was like this niggling intuition that said, if you take this step, it will make absolutely no sense, but it's all going to work out. So I thought I was going to study psychology. And I quit my job and I was like, Mum and Dad, I'm going to be a psychologist. I'm going to go back to uni. It's all good. That was like what I was telling everyone. And then I looked at the process and it was long and I'd already finished a degree. And it just wasn't right for me. So I just started working at a cafe, just kind of cruising, living a life that I probably didn't have in my teens, because I went straight from uni into this internship and then like working in that industry. So I was just having a bit of fun. But then the voice of my intuition was silenced because everyone around me was like, what are you doing? Why? Where are you going next? So I took a job at a pretty large music label as a creative producer, and it was like the worst time of my whole life. I made a decision based on other people's ideas, and that's where it led me. So there was no alignment there. I learned a lot about people in that time, but it was the most darkest time of my life. It looked really fun on the outside, music videos and, styling and stuff, but the music industry, if you don't want to really be there, it's a really tough pill to swallow. So then the little voice popped up, said enough is enough. I randomly became a personal trainer. It just was the thing. My intuition said, do it. And I trusted it. So I became a PT. I got a job managing a gym, which was amazing because it was flexible and I was moving away from corporate. So the journey kind of to what I wanted to do started beginning. And then it was at the gym that I met a kinesiologist who was studying, and she asked me to just come and do some practice sessions with her. And from my first session, I was like, this is what I want to train in. So I always had the like intuition voice, But it wasn't until I started working with her that I really understood energy work and how my energy works and how I'm being conditioned and how the clearing happens. And then from there, I started studying in that modality, and that got me to here. Like what I practice is definitely something that I've created from what I've learned, but in terms of how I got introduced to energy work, it was through that.
And then when you look back, you sort of touched on it before, but when you look back at kind of everything you've done to get where you are now, does it all make sense?
It definitely makes a lot of sense, because I guess what I say to people who are going to work with me is like, yes, I've done some training in kinesiology for sure, but the real training came from the years of 20 to 29 when I went through like life school and earth school, because it was really hard 9 years for sure. Like there was some beauty in it, but there was a lot of lessons. But in each chapter, I was directed to different healers and different modalities to help me feel better and to heal myself. So I couldn't have seen it at the time, but the, I guess, soul wisdom that was unlocked through all those years definitely makes a lot of sense. Like I couldn't have done this route 5 years ago. I had to go through all of the things for sure.
But I think the fact that it took 9 years and you, even though you had sort of little detours, you still intrinsically knew where you wanted to go and kind of stuck with that, even though it took almost a decade.
The vision I had at 23 when I was working in corporate was, I want to work for myself. I want to help people. I want to do whatever I want, wherever I want it without a boss. And I want to bring in good money for what I do. And that is the vision I always held. I never knew how that was going to unfold, but I never gave up on that vision. Now, when I started working at the gym, it took me out of corporate. Like it was really flexible. I traveled heaps because I was managing. It was remote, great community. I worked whatever hours. Like as I left corporate, and I didn't exactly still have what I wanted, but I made a very potent next step. And I was like, hey, we're getting there.
Yes. Is that sort of what inspired action is, in terms of like following this vision and not necessarily knowing the outcome, but you're still kind of being active in creating it, if that makes sense?
So manifesting anything, we have to take inspired action all the time. Now, inspired action is inspired from like the intuition or the soul or from the heart. It's where you say like, this is my vision. I know what I want to get to. Now I am going to let go of the way that I think it's going to happen, and I'm going to follow the nudges. Now, to really take heart-led inspired action, you have to be in a place where you have a connection with the intuition, and I am lucky that that's something I have always had. It's something that definitely can be worked on, but inspired action is action from a place of, this feels right. I don't really know why, but I know what my vision is and I trust that it's going to get me there. And so when I did the PT course, my parents were like, what the, like, I was like, I'm going to do this. And people around me were like, you've worked in the music industry and now you're going to be a personal trainer. I'm like, I don't know why, but I know that it contributes to the vision of having a more flexible lifestyle. So I'm going to follow that. The one thing I will say about inspired action is it can feel really risky at times. So it's really important to take inspired action from a way where you have a good base level foundation. Like I had the things in place I needed in case it fell through, and support from the people around me to say, if this doesn't go the way I needed to, will you be able to help me out until I figure out what does? That helps inspired action, having something to just keep you secure in a way.
Yeah, it's not, risky. It's like well thought out.
It's like a beautiful fusion of both. You don't want to just say, fuck it and just do whatever. It's like, okay, that actually is an inspired action, because that's like a message from the brain, like it feels scrambled. Inspired action, when it's really coming from the right place, it feels really good.
And as you were just talking about intuition, and also what you're just saying about like being smart about the risks you take, it's almost like as well, if you have like intuition about something, or you're like, I feel like I should do this course or whatever, doing it in a way that even if it fails, you're not completely, left bare or destitute or whatever. I think that also helps build almost the muscle of the intuition. So it means like you can start to lean into it a bit more, especially if it doesn't necessarily come supernaturally or it's blocked. Whereas if you do it in a way that's smart and you have this support and the backup, you can sort of build that muscle a bit more.
And it comes back to like following your intuition is a very feminine-led action. Now, as we are beings, we have the duality of both. Now, when we're first inviting the feminine side to come through more, to show her face more, she needs the masculine support. She needs to feel safe in that space. Now, if someone is quite out of touch with that feminine side of them, or they haven't recently connected with it, you can't just take this big intuitive led leap because the feminine doesn't feel safe in that. So it's like guiding them through that process with a safe masculine container, whatever that looks like. For me, it was like knowing I had financial support if if things don't go the way I want them to. And then once you do that more, it's easier for the feminine to then take action with less of a masculine support because you trust that voice more. It's exactly right. It's a process. You can't just go like, oh, I'm just going to do this now and this feels good, because your nervous system is not regulated to that behavior. So regulating your nervous system to actually sit with an intuitive decision is really important as well.
Do you mind just going through and kind of, I guess, describing or talking about the two different energies and how they're different?
Yeah, for sure. So this is actually something that I'm on a journey on at the moment. Like, I will preface by saying I am not amazing at being in my feminine. It's something that I am actively working on at the moment. And it's definitely a journey. And for me, I think it differs for everyone, but I think I've been doing work with this beautiful healer called Patrice, and she's been really helping me with steering a bit away from like the real mainstream conversation about this, because I find it can get a bit confusing. The way that she has really helped me see it is like, within us, we have these various archetypes. Now, some of these archetypes are more feminine and some of them are more masculine. She calls them the alpha and the omega. So alpha for the masculine and omega for the feminine. And the feminine, within this archetype, she's slow and considered. It's more flow than force. It's heart-led. It's intuitive. And she's happier to make decisions from the soul wisdom that resides within us, from, all the lives we've had, from the way that we see the world. Like, it's more of a wisdom, slow approach. Whereas the masculine or the alpha archetype, he likes to create space and containers to like get shit done. It's more intellectually led. It's more thought out. To me, the masculine, my archetype, he works faster. He wants to get it done now. But also I feel like he's that real, I've got us energy. Okay, I'm going to allow you to do what you need to do in this softer space, but I've created a life where this is safe, so I've got us. Yeah, so I feel like, to me, my masculine side has structured my life in a way that allows my feminine to come through in a way that feels safe. And for me, it's been more of she's kind of been like peeking her head out, being like, okay, are we good? We're good. Okay, cool. Now I feel safe. In the first 6 months of setting up my business, I was really in a masculine space, but I felt like I needed to be there to create the foundation for now. I feel now like I can work way slower and I can just chill a bit, and the structures and systems are in place. I'm not saying stepping into that in its entirety was really healthy for the rest of my life, but it was necessary. And the masculine needs to be appreciated for that. I think the conversation a lot is, oh, you're too in your masculine as women, you're too in your masculine, it needs to turn off. But it's like, our masculine is important. And just like men, we all know, need to feel appreciated. that archetype needs to feel appreciated. We need to speak to it like it's a person and say, thank you so much for everything that you're doing for me. But right now, I'm giving you so much permission to just relax. You get to leave the room and let's bring through that other energy. So it's, for me, it's been an actual conversation. Like I talk to my masculine. I'm like, okay, thank you for today. We did awesome. You can cruise. And then I'll do some sort of ritual to come to bring through feminine energy, whether it's, you know, some breath or a meditation or grounding. That's how I'm experiencing at the moment. And it's been the most helpful and practical way for me to work on this for myself.
And like you said, it's like we all, both male and female, need both of them, and they'll peak at different times depending on what's needed. Like when I've been thinking about it, I've almost thought about it as the feminine being macro. So it's more like whole thinking, looking at everything, feeling, emotional, and then the masculine's like the micro, you know, so it's more getting things done, like you're saying.
Hyper focus. Whereas when I think about stepping into a lighter energy, it's more like, oh yeah, like, you know, this is chill. This will work out with this. Like, I don't need to hyper focus on anything. Like, I need to just hyper focus on myself and how I'm feeling, pretty much, you know, and that's it.
And since you've been kind of working on understanding or kind of building or being more in touch with the feminine from like a lifestyle but also business point of view, like what have you noticed, just in your life generally, but also within your business, how that's changed or where you've seen more success or improvements or whatever it is?
In my personal life, I would say a change of dynamic in my relationship. Like I've had to openly like talk about this with my partner and help him understand the dynamic change, because he's known me in a very masculine approach, getting shit done, you know, Steph's doing this, she's blah, blah, blah. And so that changes like their dynamic. Like he is such a beautiful polarity. Like he holds his masculine and feminine just effortlessly, you know. So because I've been more in that masculine place, he has probably been able to relax less out of that. But now, because I am trying to soften and just kind of receive more, I've had to communicate what that looks like to him. So that's been a beautiful dynamic change in our relationship, where I've really allowed myself to be more held and to be received. And I think it's just been a slowness, like coming into this time of the year. I think 3 months ago, I would have been like, I have to get stuff done. I've got to post on my Instagram. I've got to do this and got to do that. But like I've taken, you know, a week off from the business. I've just been surfing and doing like things that really bring me joy. Like I'm like, if it doesn't feel like so good in my body, I don't want a bar of it. Just like eating really like indulgent foods and just a complete slowing down. Like, but in my personal life, I've just been like joy. That's it. What actually makes me feel grateful in the moment, not like just like writing a gratitude list. Like, you know, those moments where you do something, you're like, oh my God, I'm loving this. That's been the priority.
Yeah. And it's almost like by now that kind of things are set up and you have that support and you can sort of focus on the joy and slow down and enjoy things, it's like putting trust out there and saying like, I know I don't have to be at my desk 24/7 and I can be out enjoying myself because I trust that it will come and it will work out. And you know what I mean? Because when we're constantly like, oh, I have to do this and this and this, that actually, you're not trusting that it will
Definitely.
be okay.
And that's not magnetizing. Like I talk a lot about like the vibrational frequency scale, where we've got like these really beautiful, fulfilling, nourishing emotions on the top, or emotions are just energy in motion. So these energies that we hold, and that's joy and love that's at the top. Now, at the bottom of that scale is like stress and shame and guilt. Now, if we're operating from stress and shame and guilt consistently, like they're going to come up, but if we operate from that consistently rather than viewing it and allowing it to pass and clearing it, then we're really only attracting things that bring on more shame and guilt and fear. Now, if we can bring ourselves, if we can do things that invoke joy and love within our life, then we invite more of that energy into our lives. It's really interesting when you make that conscious decision to seek out joy, you cultivate a life that is susceptible to more moments of joy. And that's definitely the biggest lesson I learned from last year was after I set up all the structures of the business and whatever, a big thing missing was like innate joy for me. And so that led to, a feeling of burnout. Now, my biggest priority now has changed. And it's like, instead of what can I do to grow my business today, or, it's what can I do to bring joy into my life today? That's a new question. And it feels really good. Yeah, I forgot. I fully forgot last year. I wasn't surfing. Like, I love music. Like, I wasn't playing my decks. I wasn't going to gigs. Like, I forgot really what brought me the most joy.
Do you have any sense of why we're so out of balance and why the masculine is so dominant?
To me, it feels like it's just because we're in this age where it has the conditioning of like the world is like the people who succeed are the people that hustle and grind and work really hard, and money doesn't grow on trees, and hard work, success comes to those who hustle, and that mentality. I also think the opposite of that is the people who do come through with these new messages, they are vindicated and made to feel wrong, and the feminine approach is threatening to those who have struggled for their whole life. And because most of the world is still run by people who have this old patriarchal approach, so when these new little people, as in like the small guy or woman, comes in and says there's an easier way to do this, well, they're like, no, this will not be the message. So it's the, the David and Goliath story. It's like this new way of doing things is still very taboo, even to our parents, like I know my parents get triggered when I tell them things can be easy. They're like, no, but the struggle, we love the struggle, And that's the way that I feel like it's been presented to me. But the up and coming age of women and also really empowered men who are speaking this new truth is incredible. And whilst the internet is, Instagram and social media can be to our detriment, I think that platform has really, that's a very masculine container that has made it safe for the feminine to come through, knowing that the message will be received by, as many people as possible.
But I think what you said about living in a patriarchal society is so true. It's like, obviously that conversation about the patriarchy that's been happening, which is awesome. But what I've realized recently is that the piece that's missing is living in a patriarchal society and the values that come with it. So it's not just about every CEO being a man rather than a woman and those sorts of things. It's like, what do we actually value as a society when we're in a patriarch? And that's like money and growth and goals and, hustle and all of these things. But it does feel like you're saying that there's this shift away from that. And that's almost this shift into maybe more of a matriarchal society, who knows, but into kind of embracing the feminine, not only from more women being present or men stepping into their feminine more, but also what we value as a society, and those values being more about community or heart-led and feeling and all of that sort of stuff.
And the conversation is growing for sure. I think that there is a lot of work to do in the space because we are still dominated by this, old white man approach, which is the truth of it all. I think that the healing comes when people just inject themselves into the communities that are willing to ignore that greater message and just do what they're doing anyway. It's interesting because you just have to be willing to be misunderstood. When I was working in corporate, I was like, this cannot be what am I doing? I'm just sitting on a computer all day. But it's interesting what you said. Most people, they want out of it, but getting out of it seems really hard. Now, there's this interesting dynamic between easy and hard, because when you follow your heart and it's a soul-led, wisdom-led, intuitive-led approach, yes, it might be hard in terms of lots of things to do to get there, but it doesn't feel hard. It feels, that's why when I say it gets to be easy, it doesn't mean that I get to work 2 hours a day, but the things that I do feel really good. So even if I did them for 100 hours a day, it doesn't feel anything like the corporate hard. So people think, oh, it's too hard to go out there on my own. But if you're really listening to your heart and your soul and your intuition, you're being guided and supported by the universe. It all is in flow. So people, it's like, pick your hard, the hard that is hard for a little bit, but it actually feels really good, or just slogging it in the hard, in the suck, the corporate suck. If you want to work in corporate, I mean, that's amazing. You do you. But a lot of people don't want to be in that suck. And it's not even about working for yourself. Like, following a heart-led might be, doing something with animals, what you really want to do, but you feel like there's no money in or whatever. But it's like, if you follow your soul and that feels good, the money, no matter what you do, the money will come.
Yes. And it's like, if you're working in something that is out of alignment, it's an energy suck. So you're just like, have nothing. Whereas if you're working in a field, or it feels more in alignment, it can actually fill your cup and be recharged by it, which people don't. There's such a disconnect there. And like you said, it can take a while to get there, and it's a process, and, people have bills to pay and things, but it's not ruling it out. And I think it's starting to explore that and changing what work is from something that is, like, I have to go, and people living for the weekend and all of that sort of stuff, to it being something that is, recharging and like giving you energy rather than just totally depleting.
This is where generational trauma comes into play, because when we don't clear the conditioning of our generational lineage, we adopt the conditioning of our parents, our grandparents, and everyone in that lineage. Now, for me, I'm Greek, and my grandparents and my family came from struggle and, war and a really bad economy, and they came here as immigrants. And so I had to unlearn their way of seeing the world through energy work, through kinesiology, so I could do this. Now, again, if I didn't clear the generational trauma around struggle and fear and like love of the struggle, because they identify with struggle, that's just how they have known the world, I wouldn't be able to do this. But it's until you unravel these stories and do this like energetic healing work, which really is the crux of all of it, and clear the old energy from your body, then you create the space in your mind, body, spirit to listen to what your actual heart and soul says about work.
And what you said about mind, body, soul is something that actually only clicked for me yesterday when I was thinking about this conversation, because I was thinking about energy medicine, and, it's currently at the moment still pretty woo-woo, and like people like, oh, eye roll, like you've gone to a kinesiologist, it's still not mainstream. But I really think in the next however long, it'll almost be like what mental health and going to see a therapist was, I don't know, 20 years ago. That was taboo, but now everyone is like, I go to my therapist, and it's a bit of a badge of honor. So I think that will change. And I only realized yesterday that in mind, body, and soul, this sort of work is the soul part of that, health and well-being sort of trio. So I guess it would be really awesome to hear from you what the work that you do is, how it works, and I guess how you see what this industry will be, like what it is now, and what you kind of think it will become in the next, 10 years or so.
So the way that I work, so like I said, like I did, formal training in kinesiology, and then that for me just unlocked a healing knowledge that I had within me, like, so the way that I look at this work, the way that I approach it, my methodology that I have created, it is just helping my clients activate the innate healing power of their body. So like our bodies are so intelligent, but the intelligence of the body is silenced by obviously the world and the conditioning of the world that tells us that we don't know ourselves. But the intelligence of the body becomes also silenced because we hold on to energetic fragments of past trauma, of conditioning, of our parents, of stories, of situations. And as energetic beings that we are, everything on this planet is made of the same thing. We are all energy. When that intelligence is silenced by an overcharge of old energy, we don't know how to function. We operate as an old version of the self. We operate based on these old energies that we have in us. And we just repeat the same shit. We just be the same person every time. Our body can only attract energy that is of the same vibration of what we hold. So if you're holding on to all of that old stuff, well, you're just going to constantly attract things that reflect those old patterns and stories. So I use different methods of healing, different vibrational tools to heal and to clear the old energetic fragments to create space for higher vibrational energy. Now, energy never goes away. You can't get rid of it. It's only transferred. It only becomes something new. So through clearing, I wouldn't say, it's not like clearing, like getting rid of it. It's almost like making the energy malleable so it can then be alchemized into a higher vibration.
Okay, so you don't, like, when I visualize it and when I've worked with you, when you've said clearing, I sort of think like it goes, but are you saying it changes, or the frequency changes into something else rather than it disappearing out of your body almost?
I call it a clearing because in a sense we're clearing this space of like really dense, heavy, old energy and reinfusing the space with this really beautiful high frequency energy that, like, I think of them as like little smiley energy particles rather than like angry, heavy, dense particles. And through that process of like transmutation, of alchemization, it's like when your internal ecosystem is vibrating at a higher frequency, you then become a magnet for things that vibrate at that new frequency that are higher up that vibrational scale. There are things in life that you simply cannot attract if your body holds on to old energy. So when people come to me, they come to me with a certain thing they want to achieve. We have like a direct goal or intention, like you would know. Now, when that goal comes online to me, the body will tell me everything energetically that's happening in the body that is stopping that person from reaching that goal. So the body will show me different ages, different situations, different traumas, and then together we work on those and use different transmuting techniques to make that energy into something new.
I can't necessarily articulate it, but it makes sense, like, as you said, everything is energy. And of course, if we've had a trauma, it's going to live somewhere. Like, again, I can't articulate it, but that just makes total sense for me. And I think the fact that kind of modalities like this are considered woo-woo, or it doesn't make sense, or it doesn't work, is almost masculine in itself, because the masculine is so logical and it's so, almost facts. This is more esoteric and kind of feeling and all of that sort of stuff, that we haven't embraced this as a legitimate modality because it is more feminine.
The thing that I find strange about people calling it woo-woo, it's like, if there's one thing that connects every single thing on this planet, whether you can see it or feel it, touch it, it is energy. So really, this energy work is working with the innate nature of everything on this planet. And like, the more work that comes out in the field of quantum physics, it begins to really solidify that this matter versus frequency versus energy conversation. It's like, no, every single thing at its most basic innate structure is energy. So when we work with practices that work with our most innate nature, how can that be woo-woo? Like, yes, it can't be qualified in like these big scientific peer-reviewed papers, but like if you speak to people and you know you yourself can testify for it, I can because it changed my life. Like if you look at the way that lives are changing because of this work, because the intelligence of the intelligence of the body is the same intelligence of the world. We're all the same thing. So when we see what happens when we clear the energy and reactivate the innate healing power, how can anyone say that this work is fake? Like it is beyond me.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, because with quantum physics and there being more like scientific evidence now or studies or whatever, there's at least more of a conversation around it. But I also sort of feel like we've lost the ability to sort of just be and kind of appreciate the unknown and the magic. Again, last night when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about how people don't necessarily, it's not necessarily legitimate in a lot of people's eyes. And people really need that scientific evidence to believe in it. But I was thinking like we're here, like regardless of if you believe in the Big Bang, creation theory, whatever, stories, Adam and Eve, we're here. And yes, there's probably science that can back that up and can sort of explain how we went from bacteria to humans, whatever it is. But can't we also just sit and think like, that is so cool that we're here, there's magic and you have sex and two tiny things become a baby. Yes, there's science behind it, but that's also just a really cool magic thing of life. And I think this is sort of the same thing. It's like, yes, there can be evidence, but can't we also just appreciate we might not necessarily be able to intellectually understand, but if we feel it and we know that it works or can help, can't that also be enough?
100%. And like to me, living in a world with no magic is boring. Like, to be honest, someone said to me, do you want to put your clients through, you know, scientific testing so we can, you know, make this really like credible? I probably would say no, because I love that this work, it's so magical and miraculous and cool that I don't really need to understand the intricacies of how it all fits together. If the person that you're working with has a heart-led intention and you know energetically that that connection is right for you, just being in their energetic presence is healing. If their energy is heart-led and it's like vibrating at that high frequency of love and bliss and joy, you just spending time with that person is healing. And how cool is that? It's a very interesting time to speak the truth about this work and to kind of silence the people that need it on paper. And, you know, if they do, that's okay for them. And that this probably isn't the right type of work for them. And that's okay. It's not for everyone. It's the conditioning. It's like, this is the research, this is the science. And yes, there are things in this world that is 150% necessary. But when we discount the intelligence of the body, like it makes babies. Like, how is it not the most intelligent thing in the whole entire world? Like, what? Like, a human baby grows inside a person and we think that our bodies don't know how to heal from things. The same intelligence that governs the perfect ecosystem of this world is the same energy and intelligence that governs us.
But again, it's also like people, because they're disconnected from themselves, they outsource everything and they don't necessarily listen to themselves of like, oh, there's this issue, so I'm going to go to a conventional doctor for that because I feel that that's what's right. But for this one, I'm going to go and get kinesiology, whatever it is, because we don't listen to ourselves, and so we don't follow different routes for different issues.
There is like this aspect of people who are in more of a Western traditional approach that it is like our life's work has been based off this research, and like there is like a protection of it. And I think I do find friction with people that I know who are more in that space where they are almost defensive and threatened in a way. So those people who maybe are trying to branch out into different modalities that are more of an Eastern approach, a holistic approach, they're almost told not to do that. And then there's that fear that is instilled in them. Now, the rise of holistic doctors, GPs, clinicians, all of that is incredible. And again, that's why I think that Instagram and social media and podcasts and those masculine things are so important to spread those messages.
And I wonder if the other thing is because of the way our systems are set up, change takes so long because, like you're saying, there's these really rigid ways of doing things. So for it to change, it number one threatens the beliefs of that system, be it health, politics, whatever. So the change, I think, then can take a while. But I wonder if, in 10x amount of years, however long, if like going to the GP, for an example, the GP might have a medical degree, but they'll also be a kinesiologist and a herbalist. And, like that, like you said, it will be more holistic, or they'll refer, if they don't have that stuff, they'll refer you to a kinesiologist or an acupuncturist, and they'll sit side by side rather than them being so opposed.
Definitely. And there's a lot of chiropractors use muscle testing, which is like the basic principle of kinesiology, which is amazing. Like lots of people get introduced to muscle testing, which is like a way of communicating with the subconscious through, a modality like chiropractor, like with a chiropractor. But I definitely think that is 100% coming. And to me, I almost feel like modalities which put the body first, which communicate with the body first, like kinesiology, like energetic body work, things that use the innate intelligence of the body, that is the first place, because your body will tell you, do you need to go to a nutritionist? Do you need to go to a physio? Do you need this? Do you need a GP? My baseline is muscle testing the body first. If my body doesn't tell me to do it, I am not doing it. That is when the innate intelligence of the body is active. Now, I am definitely an outlier in that space. When I have a physical manifestation of an issue, whether it's pain in the body, whether it's a sickness, I will talk to my body first and find out the energetic underlying reason. And then from there, I say, okay, do I need to go and see my GP? Is it a physio thing? What is going on here? Is it my naturopath? Is it blood tests? Is it my supplements? Like the body test all of this first. In my ideal world is that is the ultimate honoring of the innate intelligence of our bodies. I mean, obviously, if you're fall on the floor and have a seizure, like you're going to go to hospital first. But I'm saying like once the physical symptom is become manageable, then the question to ask is, body, what is the way forward? Tell me what is going on. Now, for a lot of symptoms, like trauma lives in the body. Everything has an energetic and emotional root. For a lot of people, they will heal when the need for the physical manifestation no longer exists. The physical manifestation of a sickness or an illness or pain is the body saying, there is a serious imbalance. I want you to listen to me. I'm trying to tell you what is wrong with me. My pain is a message. It is a symptom of something that needs to be addressed. If all humans did this energy work from when they were a child, they would be drastically healthier. Like, if you're constantly clearing energy from the body, well, imagine how much healthier of humans we would be. And I completely agree with you that our systems would be so beautifully rebalanced if we weren't trying to slap band-aids on symptoms, which then will show up in a different place in a different way, rather than healing them at the root cause.
But one thing you mentioned a while ago, but just abundance mindset, because this is something that I guess is a big part of your work and your philosophy. So it would be awesome if you could just sort of talk through abundance mindset and then the opposite being scarcity, I think, and just kind of what the differences are and how you, I guess, foster an abundance mindset and what that has kind of done for
definitely.
you.
So it's funny, the word abundance has become such a buzzword in like the industry at the moment. And me and my friend, she's a meditation teacher, we were talking about what actually does abundance mean to us. And to me, it's like freedom, like the freedom. People think they want abundance, but what they really want is like a freedom to do just whatever they want, when they want, to just feel limitless, like everything is accessible to them. Now, the really funny thing about that, working on that and getting into that space of feeling free to do whatever you want, people come to me and be like, I want to work on my abundance mindset. And the thing that we actually work on has nothing to do with money, or actually like, you'll clear generational things about money from the parents. That takes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, it's gone. But it's interesting that what actually leads to bringing in more abundance of all things, more freedom, is really basic things like self-love and self-care and surrounding yourself with people who lift you up and putting yourself in high vibrational spaces. If we look at abundance from like a money perspective, which is where most people see it, when you just focus on money and you forget about everything else, money is just energy, like everything. So if you just focus on the money side, but you neglect self-love and care and just being a good human, well, you're never going to be vibrating at that high place of consciousness, which is where freedom happens. So receiving an abundance of all things in your life, including money, is a byproduct of being in a high vibrational space as often as you can. That is by finding joy and bliss, by following your intuition, and by believing that you are worthy of it. And then, there's so much, when you believe you are worthy of abundance and freedom, you then take actions like regulating your nervous system around money, finding support around money. It's like the actions that you take around wealth in a high vibrational space will bring you more wealth. But when you're in a low vibrational space and living in fear and guilt and shame around all things in your life, you're not going to take the heart-led actions that a wealthy person would take, like nervous system regulation, like making smart money decisions and things like that. So abundance is an overflow of all the things in our life that we desire, and that you become a magnet for that when you overflow your life with things that bring you love and joy. It's never, money is like a byproduct of all of that. For me, the way I see it, the baseline of it is, if I have a roof over my head and food to eat and clean water and people who love me, I'm abundant already. Coming from a place of, I am so abundant right now. Feeling abundant is feeling love and joy and appreciation. That is abundance. Now, when we act from a place of fear and I have to do this now because the money needs to come, that is not believing that you're in abundance. That's believing that you're in lack. Now, for me, when I go to sit down to do something, or for the way I plan my weeks, it's like, am I doing this because I think it's necessary, or am I thinking I have to do it from a place of lack? Now, if it's coming from a place of lack, well, then I'm like, well, no, I'm going to do something that brings me joy, because I don't want to do any activity from a place of, I have to do this, otherwise I won't make money. Otherwise I won't be drawn to money. That is doing something out of scarcity, and anything we do from that energy, for me, when I put things out into the world, I'm just going to attract more people and things that reflect that.
So you mentioned before, like nervous system regulation. Is having a regulated nervous system how does that relate to, I guess, frequency and energy? Like, is it like when we have a dysregulated nervous system, we're in a energy or frequency that's low or it's scarcity, and so we can't necessarily feel abundant? Or how does the nervous system?
Yeah, so nervous system regulation, I'll use money as an example, okay, just because we're talking about abundance and many people associate abundance with money. So, for example, when our nervous system is dysregulated, we're in a state of fight or flight. So for a lot of people going through change or something, you're having an argument, the nervous system is just like, there's a lot going on, where I would call fight, fight, or freeze mode, okay? So if we look at money, I think all of us have a certain number that when we go below that number in our bank accounts, I like to call it the money ceiling. When we go below our money ceiling, there's like this, oh, fuck, I have to get that money back. Oh, no, I have to make more money. I have to do this. I have to do that. Like we go into a place of fight or flight and our brain goes into scarcity mode thinking I have to do this and this and this and this and this and this. There's like this complete shutdown of intuition. It's very fear-based. Fear, guilt, shame, low vibration on the scale. Anything we do from that space of fight or flight is from a place of low vibrational energy, like for example, I'll use me as an example. Say I didn't have a lot of clients or something like that. And to make money, because I'm freaking out about money, I go and put out all these like half-assed products, hoping they'll sell. Now, that anything that you do from that place, and maybe it'll bring you some money, but because it's a low vibrational thing, you're just going to lose that money again. All the people that do it are going to complain or not like it, or it's going to be half-assed. Now, the way that works on the other side, if you are not used to having a lot of money and then all of a sudden you get a lot of money, your fight or flight looks different. It might be overexcitement and, but you're dysregulated. So you're going to spend the money to find a place of regulation again. And regulation is that money ceiling that you're so used to having. So any activity that pulls you out of your normal nervous system happy place, you need to learn to regulate yourself in that place so that you're at a place of, neutrality. And I can handle this and I've got this. Neutrality and empowerment is a much higher vibrational frequency than fear, flight or flight, mode. So that's what I mean by nervous system regulation. That's when you do certain modalities where you're taught to calm the body in situations that feel new and familiar and reconnect with the intuition so you can trust that even if there is this time of lack, you are going to be supported. And if you can just sit through perhaps a time where there is a bit more lack in your life and ask, how can I fix this, rather than, oh my God, I'm screwed, that is a different vibrational space. That's what I mean by nervous system regulation. The way that we act when our nervous system is dysregulated is a lower vibrational frequency. The way that we act in a place of neutrality, or I can handle this, or I've got me, is a higher vibrational frequency. To grow and evolve as a person, we need to teach our nervous system to be regulated in new environments and new things. We can't get more money and more abundance if we simply cannot teach our body to hold this new level of receivership, which is why people constantly get stuck at this one place or one level. It's because they might know how to bring the money in, and that's awesome. That's one part. But to then hold abundance and feel worthy of just sitting with it, that's a whole other kettle of fish.
But it's also like a 360 thing. So, what you eat, what you do, what you consume in terms of TV or whatever, how you treat your body, because it's not just one thing, but it's all of these things combined that then allow you to be in that space of
and when you think
abundance.
about freedom, it's like, you might have $1 billion in the bank, but if you have bad health and you're stuck to a bed, you're not free. If your family life has gone to shit, that doesn't feel like freedom. If you're chained to a desk, that's not freedom. So that's why when people want to improve their abundance, it's like, what is it? Do you think that money is going to be the thing that brings you more abundance? Because money is a byproduct of healing a a view of the world and a view of your life and how much overflow you have in that place. The people that have come to me to work through their own abundance mindset, we don't even talk about money until maybe 10 minutes in the last session. It's really about how are you supporting a abundant, vibrant you in your life through everything else that you're doing. And it's funny, the first thing that we talk about is always self-love, which is really interesting.
And it's like the money I see, not simplistically money, but for simplistic sake, we'll say money, but I see that as quite masculine in a way. Whereas what you're talking about is more feminine, you know? So it's interesting that those two things, like from an energy point of view, one seems more masculine and one is more feminine. So again, it's that shift or getting a bit more back into balance with those two.
Yeah, 100%. And there's a place for both, you know, like, you know, when you need to get that cash to do what you need to do, like, yeah, you go into that I need that money now mode. But if we think about life as like the whole evolution and journey of it all, it's like, I want freedom. Now, when I truly feel free in the way that I've created my life and through being my authentic true self, that feels really freeing to me. So when I get in an energy of freedom, I automatically attract the things that create freedom for me. Now, obviously, wealth will be one of those things, but other things that feel like freedom to me is, you know, beautiful sisters and friends that really see me for who I am, you know, the ability, a flexible way to work. So I have freedom in my day. So that really, if we were to look at the way, it's like, if a feminine approach to it is like, what would this money make me feel like if I could do all of these things, and how do these things make me really feel? And then that masculine approach is like, okay, what structures do we need to set up in our life to get that money in the bank account and to make it happen? Okay, cool. That's that side of it. But the feminine side of it is way more fun and enjoyable.
Yes, exactly. And like you said, it's the need for both, because if you're just like, oh, I want my life to be like this and la la la, nothing will happen. But then if you're the opposite, you might have money, but
yeah, exactly,
you're miserable. So I think what is really cool about you is you're in this space, we'll call it like the healing, I don't know, energy space, but you still go to concerts, you DJ, you enjoy life. I think often there's a perception that people in this space are like, you know, at home, like sitting in front of an altar at yoga 24/7. And I think what's really awesome about you and quite accessible is that you have fun, you like live your life. You're not necessarily what people would perceive an energy, you know, healer or worker to be. So I don't know if that's something you've thought about or kind of what your experience has been with that in this space. But I just wanted to make that note because I think it's probably the future of things.
Yeah. I love that. I want to be accessible. What kept me away from this world is I was like, everyone is a purist, you know, like it's like, but what we like to put on the side note for a second is like, there are people in this world living their absolute best life and they don't do one spiritual thing. And I feel like when people get deep into this spiritual world, they sell this thing where it's like, if you want to be everything you desire, you have to be this one archetype of a person that does this. And they're very like, you know, just like, it's just overkill. And it's like, no, because there are people in this world, like I said, who are so happy and joyous and successful, who do not apply any of these techniques. This is just one way to do it. And it feels really, really good to me. And I could not think of anything worse than being a purist and losing the things that bring me joy. I could step into that archetype but I wouldn't even be myself. There'd be no joy. It'd be so boring. And I think it's like goes back to what people are magnetized by. When people see someone in their element, just really enjoying life, that you want to be a part of that energy. Their energy is healing to you. Now, I've seen, I would say like people, therapists and things like that, who are very amazing at what they do, but they don't have that element of energy of like, I love my fucking life. That is healing to me. I'm attracted to that energy. Just being in that person's space wants me to make the most out of life. So that's why I really feel like if you are tapping into joy, people want to be a part of that. And you also show people that healing is not this boring journey where you have to become, a monk. That's boring. I see more and more now people just being themselves and doing what they love. Like I do energy work because I love it. It brings me joy. So that just is like another pie of my life. I'm not just an energy healer, like I am all of these things. We are multidimensional beings with so many different archetypes. And I definitely agree that that is the future of this space, because real is in and purists are so out.
Yes. And I think I've thought a lot recently about like labels, like people want to be being defining themselves by a label. So I was vegan for, I don't know, 5 years. And for me, I identified so much with that because it was a way for me to be like, oh, my values are this, la, la, la. And I've come to realize that that's not, I don't want that, because things change, things ebb and flow. And I've noticed just more generally that people, really want to be identified as something. And kind of what you're saying is that we're so much more than just one thing. And it feels like there is this shift happening of people accepting that. And like, I can go to like a nightclub or a music festival, but then I can spend my days doing kinesiology, or I can be but I can also love having Mars, totally. Whatever. But they're not mutually exclusive, and that you can be all of those things. And your point on the purist is so true. And I think the more like extreme or the more purists can sort of look at people who are more, I guess, balanced in a way. And it's like, oh, well, if you're not 110%, then it's not good enough, or it's not enough, or it's not real. But that's just not, I don't think that's just not the way the world works. And you're going to cut people out.
Totally. And that's not coming from a heart-led space. Like if you're a heart-led person, you live your life with things that light up your soul. Now, if you're in the space of healing and you're not living from a place of lighting up your soul, well, then there's no integrity there. Like I love meeting someone, especially in this space, who is like, okay, I did study with this girl and she, seemed very, spiritual, but like on the back end, she was like this absolute computer whiz, like one of like the best web developers, And I'm like, that's epic. You're multidimensional. Like, that's so cool. Let's talk about 100 different things. Like, I don't want to just talk about spirituality all the time, because it's such a unique and individual thing that we're all going through. And really the process of evolution is to become less identified with our ego. And our ego loves defining us by these black and white rules, but our heart loves all the fragments of things that make us really happy. So I just think that this old style of like defining people by like what they do or how spiritual they are is actually weeding out the people who aren't in this industry for the right reason. And that is, I do this because it brings me joy. And with that joy comes being of service to the greater collective of this world. And it's so awesome to work with people who are multidimensional. It gives people permission to be themselves. And that's something that I'm very unapologetic about. And so it's really nice to hear that from you, because that's something that I hope to help inspire others to just fuck the label off and just it be.
Yeah. And it also means that, like you said, it gives people permission. Like if you go to someone who like is like more of a purist, you're probably not going to be as open. If you're not like that, you're not going to be as open and receptive, because you're like, oh, if I tell them I whatever had gluten,
totally.
whatever it is, I don't know, then so there's that block and that tension.
The judgment. And that's why I love working with the modality of the body, because when you come to me or any other practitioner who works the same way that I do, you are just a blank slate, and your body dictates everything that is in your highest good and what is not in your highest good. I don't care what the body says is in the highest good. If it says it's in your highest good, that's what you're doing. Now, if you're doing something that stresses out your body and the body is testing up that it doesn't like it, well, then that's not good for you. But I am not here to tell you what is best for your soul's highest expression. And people who are drawn usually to this work and to me have really beautiful heart-led intentions. So I completely trust the conversation that their body is opening, and the body actually gives you permission to be multidimensional. So many times people will come, oh, I'm like, what are you suppressing? What are you not doing? And your body's, this is coming up. Your body's saying this. And they're like, yeah, you know, I wanted to do that, but I've just felt like people will judge me. And it's like, well, don't even worry, because your body is saying do it. That thing that you're afraid of doing is actually the key to unlock your freedom. So roll with that thing.